Foresight Wrestling Podcast on the one and only 411 Podcast Network.
That's right. You are listening to the 411 Foresight Wrestling Podcast on the 411 Podcast Network. Big thanks to Steve Madsen of the Resonant Complex for that. As always, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, TuneIn, YouTube, and always iTunes. And yes, the website is 411mania.com. My tag team partner today is the one and only Steve Madsen, which you just heard. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Steve. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on. Like he said, I am with the Resonant Complex. Our debut album, North Avenue, is available on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere music can be found, you can find it.
Excellent. We are going to kick it off here and talk about this big WrestleMania week. I think we can all breathe again. It's finally over. We did it. We made it another year, man.
Man, I can't. You know, it was a wild year. There was actually a point in the year where I was ready to swear off of it. I don't know if it was just I was getting bored or whatever it was. I was just done for a minute. And actually, I did stop watching for about 2 or 3 weeks.
I understand, but when Kurt Hawkins comes back,
something's big when Kurt Hawkins is in.
Right. So we began the weekend Friday night. We got the War Raiders defending their NXT Tag Team titles against Aleister Black and Ricochet. In my mind, this was probably the easiest match of the entire weekend to predict, just for the simple fact that Aleister Black and Ricochet were leaving. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I kind of wanted to mention is when they're tag teaming on NXT and the main roster, it kind of blurs it a little bit. I kind of got jaded when Kevin Owens did it and he was the champ. So when they were on the takeover, it was like, yeah, obviously they're not going to be winning titles. We already know that they're going to the main roster and they're going to be huge.
Yeah, I felt kind of the same way with Gargano and Ciampa. They were finishing up their story, but obviously Ciampa got injured. So what do you think of the tag title match? I thought it was a great way to kick off the night.
It was awesome. Just to see that big guy, what's the big one with the longer hair? Is that Rowe or Hansen?
I get them mixed up myself.
Yeah,
Let's just go with Rowe.
But just seeing that big guy fly, man, I mean, you don't expect that. He's doing handsprings off the ropes. That's something you see Ricochet do. I mean, the fact that he could keep up with Ricochet, both of them. I mean, the power game, all that. It was just awesome. It was great.
Right. I think all four of them, and it may have been my girlfriend who said that, he was just like a bigger Ricochet. I couldn't believe he was doing some of those things too. But, in the end, they did retain, and as great as the match was, I thought the send-off was even better. It was emotional. You could tell Ricochet was getting teary-eyed, and Black was trying to hold it together for his persona. But, they did it the right way in NXT. You lose on the way out, and now they obviously have bigger and better things ahead.
I really liked the laying the belts down, the bow. That was very having martial arts training from way back. That kind of was a very symbolic thing that I kind of felt, right at the core there. That was really cool.
It was very cool, very respectful, and the right way to go out, especially with two teams that were technically faces. So up next we have Velveteen Dream defending his North American Championship against Matt Riddle. What do you think of this
Velveteen Dream.
Velveteen
Dude,
Dream.
There is something about that guy that I just like. I don't know what it is, if it was the persona, the charisma, whatever he's got. There's something about that guy that is awesome. Same token, Riddle has so much potential there, with his athletic ability that I was really excited for that.
I agree. I think based on me being a Prince fan, I was kind of biased to him regardless. I love Prince and his music and all that good stuff.
Dude, Prince is amazing. I mean, you could go on for days about that guy.
Exactly. You could for days. And, it originally was pretty much a Prince ripoff, but I think Dream now is beyond that, and he is his own character. And the best part about it is I want to say he's either 23 or 24. So as great as he could be now, he could be even better.
Wow.
I agree with that. And I think, there's rumors of him always getting called up. I have not actually heard that myself, but other people want to report it. And I'm glad he stays. I'm glad he's still in NXT. And you can see that it is showing improvement. Each and every year he gets better and better. And the fans are clearly getting more and more behind him. What did you think of Riddle losing his first time?
I thought it was well-deserved. I think he's not quite ready for a title reign yet. I mean, he's got the ability, he's got the talent, the charisma. I think he needs to put in some dues yet. I will second that. I like
it was like a throwback to the opening match where after the match they kind of had a nice respectful moment where, you know, they gave him the fist bump, and I think the crowd was. I think they were more behind Dream than Riddle, if you can believe that, and I think Dream should hold the title longer. And if Riddle does get a rematch, you know, maybe he'll show a little bit more of a darker side and not the relaxed kind of whatever dude kind of attitude.
Yeah, there's always that intensity that has the stigma that follows MMA fighters whenever they come into a sport like professional wrestling. So you know that he's got that in there, and that at some point they're going to turn that on. And I think he needs to get a little more layers to his character before they give him some big spots like a title reign and whatnot.
Right, and, you know, it's always tricky because, you know, everybody wants to come in and never lose for a few months, and you see it with every single debut, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, whatever. They'll bring in a new guy, and then they'll win for a few months, and that's great and all, but, you know, not every new guy can never lose, so I'm glad Riddle kind of got this loss out of the way, and the best part is a nice little fluke pin, so it's easy to build off that.
Right.
Up next, we had yet another title match for the WWE UK Championship. Walter finally ends the reign of Pete Dunne. What do you think?
All right. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you.
We like honesty.
I started watching late because I had a family obligation to attend to earlier that evening, and I actually fell asleep for about the first half of the match. I did catch the end and the ending sequences. So that was actually my first take on Walter. It wasn't anything that they did. It was my own. I was tired and I zonked out. So being honest with you, I can only give you my perspective from about half the match on.
Well, I did not fall asleep, but I can tell you I do not watch NXT UK. I will be honest. I also do not watch 205 Live.
Yep.
But I know all about Pete Dunne. I've seen all of his matches and the takeovers and the special.
I dig Pete Dunne in the limited amount that I've seen him. I really like his character and the intensity that he shows.
Pete Dunne is awesome, but at 600 days, whatever it was time for a new champ. And Walter, as I just mentioned, when a guy debuts and he shouldn't lose and all this stuff, Walter is a guy that should run through everybody for a while. I want to say he's the Brock Lesnar of UK, but he's a guy that does not. We'll get to Brock later. But Walter is a guy who's just going to mow over guys for a while. And, you know, I don't know if I'll remember it later, but Pete Dunne is someone that the main roster may be getting soon. So we'll see about that. Up next, we have Shayna Baszler, who retained her title over Io Shirai, Bianca Belair, and Kairi Sane. What do you think?
I thought that was a killer match. Again, the women always bring it, as they have done within the last, 5 years or so.
Absolutely.
They have just killed it every time. I was not very sold on Bianca Belair on her last takeover. I like watching NXT when I can. I don't always, so I haven't really been privy to the build-up that she's experienced. Through the vignettes and stuff that they did before those matches, I was kind of able to get brought up on the story. I think it's a really cool story because, you know, someone who may not be deserving, and then she shows you, yeah, I do deserve to be here, and she brings it. And it was awesome. I thought it was great. Plus the other ladies, awesome. Those ladies were really good.
Sky Pirates.
Sky Pirates, exactly. They told a really good story in the ring. And of course, Shayna. You know,
of course,
evil.
Shayna. We know Shayna.
She's evil.
Right. Sam Roberts caught some heat on January, I believe, at the Rumble Takeover when he pretty much said Bianca Belair's, not deserving, and what is she doing
a waste
at this?
of space. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty harsh. I mean, obviously he's getting that from his ear, so he can deny it all he wants, but that's what it is.
And you know what? He's making controversy, and I bet you more people are listening to him because, what's he going to get in trouble for this time?
Right. It goes that way too, and I'm not a fan of Sam Roberts and all these different guys coming in the panel, and clearly just trying to
agreed.
Yeah, just sounding like idiots, but. In that case, I did somewhat agree where Belair, I thought still had some stuff to prove, but I thought she did at the takeover in January. She more than proved herself there.
Absolutely, yeah.
And EST and strongest and fastest and quickest and best and all this stuff that she says. And to me, the fact that she was the one who lost, not Zayn or Shirai, that tells me Belair may also be somebody not necessarily long for NXT.
Oh, I could see that. I could see them bumping her up to the main roster. She would fit in well with the likes of Naomi and Carmella and stuff like that.
Yeah, she has the gimmick already down, and just the fact that, to me, again, it could mean nothing. I could be wrong, but just the fact she lost at the takeover, and then came here in a fatal 4-way where they could have pinned or submitted anyone,
Right.
and it was her again. 2 takeovers in a row.
And that hair.
The hair. I am jealous of the hair.
You know, the thing about her, though, is like when she was on the takeover in January, I was shocked. This time around, I was like, yeah, she definitely deserves her spot there. She deserves to be in the picture, at least.
Yep, she deserves it by now. And it's funny because Kairi Sane, which if we don't mention again later on, Paige is apparently bringing up a tag team that was teased on SmackDown.
Oh, I didn't put 2 and 2 together until right now.
May have to watch out for that. Just saying. All right, our main event, we are going to have a first-time ever NXT champion crowned. It was either going to be Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole, one or the two, and it was a 2 out of 3 falls. Who did you think was going to win going in?
Going in, I kind of thought it was going to be Gargano.
Okay, I thought Gargano, but I thought if he was going to pay off the story, it had to be over Ciampa, right?
You'd think.
You'd think so.
But they had to put the title on somebody at this point.
Yeah, they had to, I think, do it at this point. And, it may have been a call-up. It may have just been a tease. But I think Gargano going to the main roster a month or two ago, I think that's kind of out the window now after the Ciampa injury. I think they're kind of back to where they wanted to be. And Triple H is probably more happy about that than Vince. But I think I said it on Twitter. My head said Adam Cole and get the Undisputed Era kind of back of being a dominant faction. But my heart was like, after a 2-year story, it's got to be Gargano finally winning.
Finally doing it, yeah. And Adam Cole's going to have his time, whether it's on NXT or they move him up, which I thought they were going to do a little bit sooner than they have. I honestly thought that maybe, we can get into, the Raw after Mania and whatnot. I thought that would have been a perfect spot, and they blew a big chance to bring them in such a dominant way.
They blew it. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I do agree in the fact that anytime they're ready to come up, I think it has to be as a faction. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Adam Cole is a great storyteller. Even heel face, whatever, people, Adam Cole, baby. Everybody does it. I mean, you rarely hear ovations that loud. And he's going to be a big thing but he has to come up with his boys behind him, because physique wise and how Vince likes to stack the roster with big guys, he's got to have something behind him to tell the story.
Right. I would argue the Vince thing. I mean, just look at the champions right now. But either way,
he's changing his mind. I definitely think he's coming around and getting out of that big guy stereo, but he still leans towards it.
Yeah, he's got.
He likes him. He still likes him.
He's got XFL to worry about pretty soon. So, on the whole, what did you think of the show? Especially, I thought the peak of the night, obviously, Ciampa and Candice coming out for the nice celebration.
That was heartfelt. I almost expected Ciampa to throw him through the screen again.
I did think it for a split second, especially when the little copyright bug came in the bottom left corner.
Yep. That
they always tease, the show's over. No, it's not. But yeah, I don't think he could have.
But then I remembered, no bump list.
Right.
That kind of surgery you don't even mess with. So I was like, it could be. Or maybe Candice would have done it.
Hey, you never know, I guess. I would say that was just, the icing on top of the cake. The perfect way to end it. And takeovers get better and better in my mind, and this may be the best one yet.
Yeah, I agree. The takeovers, I wonder how they can outdo themselves, and then the card comes out, and the talent shines every time, and it really makes the main roster work.
Yes.
And I think that's important.
It is important. Before getting to WrestleMania 35, I'm going to throw in a quick plug here. The 411 Foresight Wrestling Podcast on the 411 Podcast Network. Now we move over to WrestleMania, the 400-hour show that began at 2 a.m. and
that was. I mean, I had the stream on all day long, but it was on mute most of the day.
I turned it on, I think at like 3-something. I arrived at my brother's condo, and, we hung out then and watched it. Up first, we had Tony Nese over Buddy Murphy for the Cruiserweight Championship. So you want to
just jump right into it?
I do want to jump right into it.
I get you. I just want to say before we get into it that for the first time in a couple of years, I was actually genuinely excited for this WrestleMania. They built it up really well. The stories I was behind, even the ones that I didn't follow, like the cruiserweights and all that, I was still excited to see it. I was happy that it was Mania time. I thought that for the first time since that big 100,000 people that just kind of flopped with Brock Lesnar and Dean Ambrose being in one of the
Reigns and Triple H.
That was just, I mean,
Rock versus Rowan for 30 seconds.
Yeah, right. So like, I haven't been as keen, on WrestleMania in the last couple of years, and last year it just felt like a glorified show. I mean, it was WrestleMania, and I was trying to be excited, but just looking at it, the way they presented it, it just felt like a really long Raw.
Right. I think this year was definitely more stacked, and I'm a little disappointed they did not release the network numbers. They usually do the day after Mania and kind of show the peak number, but they said a few months ago they weren't going to do it, and they didn't. So do you watch 205 Live? Because I do not.
I don't. I work a lot and, family stuff and all that, so I watch what I can when I can, but 205 Live is one that always goes over.
Right. I think I watched the debut episode, and then when the big thing happened and Triple H kind of took over, I watched to see what it was. And, nothing against it. I'm sure they're all great and amazing and hardworking, and everyone says they're super talented, and I know they are. But
they put on great matches.
Yeah, and on pay-per-views, they're always great matches and everything, but in terms of, hours during a week, they can only go around so many times, and 205 Live, and same with NXT UK, it's just not anything where it's like, well, now I got to sit down and watch it.
Right, exactly, yep.
So Tony Nese ended up defeating Buddy Murphy. Do you have any thoughts on this? I have a few.
I think Tony Nese deserves it. I think he's a really good worker. I watched the Cruiserweight Classic when they did that before 205 Live. I thought he put in awesome work. I was really impressed with the way he handled his character and what he could do in the ring. He really got a chance to show it off. So I thought Tony Nese was actually really awesome and deserved it. Buddy Murphy, he's a great worker, but I still don't like him from his NXT with Blake. Blake and Murphy tag team fell flat on me, and I didn't like those guys one bit. So
is he the one with Alexa Bliss?
Rumored to be, or is it confirmed? I don't know.
They were on Total Divas. I never remember if it's Blake or Murphy. I want to say it's Murphy.
It was Murphy. It was the redhead, the Australian one.
Okay. I don't have a whole ton of thoughts. I'm glad Tony Nese won the tournament. So they did build him up for the past month. He won, qualifying matches and the big tournament to become the number one contender. But Buddy Murphy, again, not to break any news or anything, but I actually had this, I want to say a month and a half ago. He was losing the title, and I don't know if it's to be with Bliss or if it's just to be rewarded for getting in great shape and carrying 205 Live, but I would not be shocked, and actually I do expect him to be either on NXT or the main roster within probably a week. So up next, we have Carmella winning the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal. What do you think?
Well, no, I should take that back.
I'll do it then.
You don't like her, huh?
I'm fine with it, but second year in a row. Naomi won last year, and it's Carmella. Can we do something with the winners here?
And exactly. Both battle royals, really.
Yes, both.
I whatever. I really thought maybe Asuka should have taken that one. I think they've kind of bungled her character, her presence. Really, she's a real strong force coming in, and then just and I think taking the title from her right before Mania, that was. I mean, how can you not be offended, or take slight at that? Hey, come on.
Insulted would be my word. I think if they end up unifying the women's titles like the tag titles and they go back and forth, I'll get it. Makes Becky obviously the woman or the man in the whole company. So I understand then sacrificing Asuka. But if they do just split them up in a week or two and then there's back to a SmackDown or Raw champion, then Asuka could have held it.
What a waste.
She could have kept it. They could have found a way around it. And that goes back to whole including Charlotte in the match in the first place. Personally, I wanted... Oh, boy.
We can get into that one.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Personally, I was surprised Ember Moon was back, and
I hadn't thought about her in a long time.
If you wanted a surprise winner, I mean, to me, Ember Moon sure would have been better than Carmella, and you could even make a case better than Asuka, because I think Asuka will be fine at the end of it. She'll come out of it fine. But Ember Moon, probably could use a little bit of a bump and do something cool, and I've just always been a fan of her. So of all the people in there, even the NXT people... Again, a few teases for some stuff coming up next week. Again, though, Carmella?
Yeah, I mean, and what are they going to do? What story is she involved in? What is this building up to? If Asuka would have won, or Ember Moon even, you could have built off of that story. Asuka got the title taken from her right before WrestleMania, so now she's building her way back up. Or Ember Moon returning from whatever it was that was keeping her away and build her back up. But Carmella, she's going to dance about it.
Right, and
All
she didn't even
right.
do the dance break. She did it later. And
Right.
I've always been taught, as bad as things are, they can always be worse. And it's true. Instead of Carmella, we almost had Sarah Logan winning.
Or, it could have been worse where Ellsworth would have come out and,
Oh, boy.
started fighting with R-Truth because he's jealous. Because I know you're a big fan of his.
Ellsworth is whatever.
Worthless.
Oh, yeah, L's worthless. All right, Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. The losing streak is over. They defeated the Revival for the Raw Tag Team titles. Big shock.
Big shock. Absolutely. I honestly did not expect them to give it to Hawkins and Ryder. But I thought it was really cool that they lobbied and campaigned their way to get a tag match on WrestleMania, because leading up to it, that was only announced a few days beforehand or whatnot.
Yeah, because Ricochet and Aleister Black got the tag title match on the
SmackDown,
on the Raw before, and
right.
then after Raw, they did the Hawkins and Ryder thing, and then on SmackDown, Black and Ricochet suddenly entered the SmackDown Live Tag Team title picture out of nowhere.
It's like, yeah, we didn't completely forget we have 2 tag divisions. Okay.
Yeah, and they had been building Usos and Hardys, and then that was thrown out the window, and then we ended up seeing it on the SmackDown after, and we saw what happened there.
Right.
So I'm glad Hawkins and Ryder, again, not to keep saying it, I've repeated myself a few times, but the Revival, this may have something to do with their plans for next week, which we'll get to. I thought it was interesting, the first 3 winners of the night, besides them being a lot of face winners of the whole night, Tony Nese, New York, Carmella, obviously, and Hawkins and Ryder, all for the New York market. So I don't know if many people caught that, but that's nice for the hometown crowd. Up next, we had talk about waste of space. Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal.
Oh, yeah.
Braun Strowman against the Saturday Night Live Clowns. Did you enjoy this at all? Did you laugh?
I laughed. I'll admit it. I did laugh. I'm a big fan of Saturday Night Live. I've been watching it since I was a kid, so I obviously know Jost and Che from that. But it was, it was a waste of space.
Okay. I'm all for the celebrity involvement. I actually look forward to it each year. If you notice, there also was not a celebrity inductee into the Hall of Fame this year. So I was actually looking forward to that kind of little stuff. I like the little cross stuff. But the problem was they didn't even get a mention on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Braun didn't show up. I don't know what's going to happen this week. I don't watch it. I don't even know if it's new. But if they don't get anything out of this, then I don't understand anything at all. They're under the same umbrella. It's NBC Universal, so It's not like they're mixing waters or anything. It's the same company. It's all for the same goal, but nothing happened out of it. And Braun ended up winning. Well, he also won the greatest Royal Rumble. Nothing happened. So do you think anything will happen with Braun now? Is he going to team with a kid again?
No, I think he's going to be, we saw him. I think they're going to build up, and I don't know how soon it's going to happen, but I could see them putting Strowman and Lars Sullivan face-to-face like they did. Or Samoa Joe like they did on SmackDown. That was impressive when he came out. There's a lot of different things that this next week thing, a lot of dream matches that actually are being realized that you never even thought about, like Strowman and Samoa Joe. That didn't cross my mind until they did it, and it was like, hey, this could be something.
No, I didn't even think of that one either. That's a good point, but the key word there is SmackDown, so we will get to that. Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar opened the show. Big surprise. Apparently, even Hulk Hogan and Alexa Bliss did not know about it as they were posing. It was that last-minute change that all of a sudden Paul Heyman came out, and he said, screw this. If we're not last, we're first, which is actually a true mentality a lot of people have because it's the hottest crowd and it's the biggest moment, the beginning of the show. So if you're not last, you want to be first. Seth Rollins came back from the pre-match attack and ends up winning the title in barely 2 minutes.
Thank God for that. I don't care how much hate I get for this. Brock Lesnar can shove it.
Whoa.
He can go to Las Vegas and choke on it for all I care. Tired of Brock Lesnar. Done with Brock Lesnar. I hope he gets the crap kicked out of him in the UFC. I hope Daniel Cormier just wipes the mat with him. I'd like to see him bleeding. I'd like to see him just lose out and then go and sit home and be like, oh, count my millions. Nah.
And with Sable.
Baby. Yeah, he's got Sable too, but, that's what you get for being Brock Lesnar.
The Beast. Well, I don't know what he's going to choke on in Vegas. I'll stay away from that one. But I'm a fan of him. I get it. He's a special attraction. You know, I also thought Rousey would do the same. And actually, when Nakamura debuted, I thought he would have been a good guy to kind of pop up every month or two and have a big dream match with, you know, Sami Zayn and NXT did. And then he fought everybody. You know, Dolph Ziggler was his pay-per-view debut. I mean, we're not going to get into Nakamura too much, but I thought he would have been a good SmackDown special attraction while Raw had Brock Lesnar. And Rousey, now with her taking off, I think now she can be kind of the next one to pop up every few months, do something and go. She did the full-time schedule. She doesn't really need to prove it anymore. We know she loves everything about it. So I'm glad Rollins won. I think we both picked him to win the Rumble.
Yep.
And both picked him here to win the title. I think it was cool. It started the show off hot, get everything trending. You know, they love that stuff.
Yeah.
So
it was a good spot for him. And then you get the, you know, because my loathe for Brock Lesnar, get it done and out of the way, and I can enjoy the rest of the show.
Right. It was perfect. It's like, let's do this. Let's crown the new champion. You know, the women are main eventing, so there's no reason to get anything kind of confused or muddy the waters a little bit. Do you think Brock will, I think he's going to do UFC. Do you think Brock will get back in the squared circle?
Everybody likes money, right?
Sure.
And, you know, from what the rumor was of what he got paid for this last run around, I mean, who wouldn't turn that down? It's the same reason why I don't fault WWE for doing Saudi Arabia shows. I mean, you're a business. Your whole point of being a business is to make money. And
they do it.
Who's going to turn down that kind of paycheck?
Right. I'm glad you mentioned Saudi Arabia. I think Brock will be back for that show.
I think he's advertised for that show, actually.
Okay.
That's like the last date on his contract.
I could see, you know, the rematch with Rollins. I could also just see some tag match where he just gets up and walks away and doesn't do a single thing and just literally says screw it and then goes to UFC this summer. So I don't know if SummerSlam, but, you know, maybe Survivor Series and next year's Mania, you know, Brock could be right back, maybe for Lars or even the Strowman thing they kind of ditched on for a while. But I'm glad Rollins is the champion. His speech on Monday kind of said it. You know, it is time for a full-time champ.
It
As
really
much
is.
as I love Brock and his whole special attraction act and how he's just like the biggest jerk in the world, it's time for someone to be there each week.
It's fine to be an attraction and to show up and be a monster and run through, but you don't need to have the title to do that. I think the title needs to stay on the program. Now I know you disagree with me on this as well. I was a big fan of CM Punk, and I think his stance of, you know, having the title kind of be the center point and everything kind of fans out from there. Call me old school. I think that's the way the main show should be.
Right. I mean, I'm a fan of CM Punk regardless because, you know, people forget this, but before he walked out in January 2014, I had just finished my 2013 best of lists and countdowns and all that BS that people do at the end of the year. He was either first, second, or third in almost every category. So I was definitely a fan. But unfortunately, once he left, it doesn't turn professional. It turns personal, which always sucks. And everything I have got over the years, and especially because, little tidbit, I know somebody that trains where he trains. And, yeah, a lot of the lawsuit stuff. And unfortunately, if that's kind of the person he wants to be, then kind of his in-ring stuff kind of goes out the window for me.
I suppose. I don't know any of that stuff, so my opinion on him hasn't been soured. The only thing he did against me was he didn't show up at my wedding when I invited him.
That is true. And I don't know if I ever told you this, but I did try for it. I reached out to someone I knew.
Oh, that was very kind of you.
In the company, little corporate email, and yeah, everyone I believe was in SummerSlam that weekend. Yep. Everyone was in Brooklyn. Yep. It was just, yeah. So up next we have AJ Styles over Randy Orton. Were you surprised by this?
You know, to be honest, I was kind of indifferent on this match. I didn't mind who won. I just was hoping for a good match. So I wouldn't say I was surprised, because both of them are great talents, and as long as it was a good match, I was happy.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I was just kind of fine with whoever. I lean towards AJ just because they made it about the battle over SmackDown, and anytime it's about, you know, who's claiming what territory, you do kind of lead towards, you know, the newer star. I know AJ's kind of up there in age, but, you know, the veteran Randy Orton is going to lose. That's just kind of how these things go. The new person kind of beats the old person. And the little controversy in the match was that there were like some bright lights or something blocking it. Yep. And I was at Mania in Orlando 2 years ago.
Yep.
And I had the same thing. I believe it was for the women's fatal four-way match, which people probably don't even remember, but Bayley retained her title in that match. But I believe it was during that match, and yes, the bright light the whole time just completely killed it. You couldn't see anything, and people were chanting. I think it was Blue Light, which was funny because the song that night was Green Light by Pitbull, I think, or somebody. But it was funny. It was a big blue light, and I can attest to it. So I'm glad AJ won. And, well, another tease for Superstar Shakeup. I believe one of those two will go to Raw. So we will move
I would
on.
almost assume. I mean, I'll go right out and say it's going to be AJ because he hasn't done much on Raw yet.
Well, no spoilers.
No,
but
no spoilers. But I'm glad AJ won too. I really like him. I wouldn't say I followed him, but I remember when he was like a little snot-nosed kid in TNA, and he had had that whole whiny gimmick going, and then to see him, move up through the ranks and do what he did in Japan, and just how his work ethic just turned around, and he was just awesome. All of a sudden, when he came into WWE, I was like, about time. It was awesome.
Right, and it is, it's a little bit shocking, but you think about it, he's already been at 4 Manias.
Yeah, that's right.
It's kind of surprising, the Jericho one, the Nakamura one, Shane McMahon 2 years ago, and then obviously Orton, and obviously you could, 4 big-time opponents there.
Right on, yeah.
So
he's... except for Shane, I mean, whatever.
Hey, that may have been match of the night. I was there. That was a hot opener, but regardless, it is surprising that he's still there. And
what else can I jump off of?
The camera platform. There we go.
Why not?
Sure. So... if it's a battle for SmackDown, I would say AJ is the one who stays. But moving on to the tag title match for SmackDown, the Usos, they retained over Aleister Black and Ricochet, Rusev and Shinsuke Nakamura, and The Bar.
All right, I'm going to call my shot right here.
Call it.
Now, a little backstory. You and I used to work together back in the day. And when Kofi Kingston made his debut,
we're not on Kofi. What are you talking about?
I know. I'm just saying. When he made his debut, I called it right then and there that he was going to be a big star.
You did.
Which somebody disagreed with me.
That would be me, and we'll get to that.
Look at where we are.
You were right. You were right.
I'm calling my shot right now. Aleister Black, and I don't want to jinx it.
Jinx it.
I think not that he's going to be doing the same persona or stigma but he's got the vibe about him. I think he's going to take Undertaker's slot.
Wow.
And
this is Steve Madsen, ladies and gentlemen.
Here's where I want to run with this. I like the Fatal 4-Way thing because he didn't lose.
Right.
So the Undertaker streak story is a brilliant story. Unfortunately, that's a story that takes 20 years of planning.
Yes.
And if they were going to start with Aleister Black, they need to start him now.
Indeed.
So the fact that he was on the losing side, he didn't actually lose. So they could very well maybe start positioning him and providing that he doesn't, get too injured or grow too old too quickly or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I see him as being that, mysterious enigma that you don't quite understand, but he's a badass and he's just gonna lay waste to whatever's in his way. Yeah, he might get hit and knocked down a couple of times, but he's always gonna come back. He's always gonna rise up. I see him as being the next dead man, just not dead.
No, don't jinx that. I like it. He's got the music, he's got the persona, he's got the aura around him, and he's already got Selena Vega, just like Undertaker had Michelle McCool. So what more could you ask for? I'm Usos, I thought, again, kind of like the War Raiders. This was kind of one of the easy ones to predict. For me, I always like to do process of elimination on multi-man matches. So the Bar, no, we've done that like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah,
kind of done with that.
Seen that.
Rusev and Nakamura, I don't know what they're doing. And then Black and Ricochet, I don't know if they're going to stay together, but I want them to be single stars, but you know what? This tag team is kind of working for me.
The tag team is awesome. I'll give it that. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I do want to see both of them shine on their individual. If they were gonna be a tag team, that's something that they should have had from the get-go. Because right now it just looks like, hey, we got 2 of you, go. Right. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna go, and they go.
And then they go.
And it's just awesome to watch. But yeah, I do want to see them flourish as single stars. They definitely earn that spotlight.
Absolutely. Speaking of the best in the world, Shane McMahon, his first one-on-one pay-per-view victory since SummerSlam 2003. Yes, that is 15 and a half years ago when he beat Eric Bischoff at SummerSlam 2003. He defeated The Miz, also in a Falls Count Anywhere match. He must win those a lot. Shane hasn't won in 15 and a half years on a singles match, one-on-one pay-per-view. What do you think?
Yeah, but did he really? Did he really?
He said on SmackDown, he
Of
bragged it
course-
up. And,
Well, of course he did, because that's what he does, because he's a McMahon.
and Miz wasn't there.
And Miz wasn't there. I'm going to be honest with you. At this point, I made food.
You get food beforehand.
Yeah, well, I got hungry. It was a long show.
That's what the promo videos are for.
I did come in at the end of it and did witness the fight through the arena up to the platform and was actually transfixed as I'm like, oh, God, who's going to die now?
Yeah, I was waiting for the please don't die chant.
Yeah.
That's what the match was. Within a few minutes, I think it was even the first minute, they were already brawling everywhere. The Miz's dad got in the ring and squared up.
I saw a picture of that later. I'm
That
like,
was
really?
that would be worth going back to watch. It was
Right.
hilarious. He came in and put his fists up, and Shane was just laughing at him. Crowd was going nuts for it. I'm going to assume this feud continues. I don't think any of them are going in the Superstar Shakeup, so they can continue this for a little bit, and then obviously Miz will probably win some gimmick match next month. What do you think?
Yeah. Actually, though, was the first time that I kind of got behind the Miz as a face. I've never really been not that I don't. I respect the guy. I think he's a great worker, and the reason why I don't like him is because he does his job very well. He is a great heel, and when they tried to turn him face a couple of years ago, I was just not behind that, and nobody was.
No.
And so then they brought him back to heel, and he does great work as a heel because, you know what? I hate him. I hate The Miz. I think Mike is awesome and talented, and he was nice to my wife when she saw him at a SmackDown Live. He was the only superstar that came out to the crowd.
Nice.
So Mike, I got a soft spot in my heart for. The Miz, I hate him, and that's the way it's supposed to be,
Right.
in my opinion.
That is how it's supposed to be. And you're right, Mike. He is the guy, any extra interviews, media, any traveling, he'll be the first one to raise his hand. And that is why he gets these things. And also that WWE Championship run in 2011 to main event WrestleMania. So
That's comical to me. I don't know why.
I do, I hope he gets back to that spot.
He does deserve it. I mean, he works hard. He puts on great matches. Every time he's in the ring, he's a threat. There's always the chance that he could pull it off, and regardless of the odds. So he does do very well, but the main event was still funny to me.
It was funny. I think 2011 there was still the whole size thing, but I think now in 2019, nobody cares.
Nobody, no.
So he could easily fit in with everyone else. Up next, we had the women's tag team titles. Again, another fatal four-way just to kind of throw everyone on the card. The Iconics defeated the Boston Hug Connection, which is Bayley and Sasha Banks, and Nia Jax and Tamina, and Beth Phoenix and Natalya. This is a minor upset, but I was rooting for the Iconics, but I did think Bayley and Sasha would pull it out.
I thought Bayley and Sasha were going to pull it out, and that was just because they went in as champions, so, I always kind of tend to favor on that side.
Right, yep.
Again, this was one match that I was just hoping for a good one, lots of awesome spots and all that. When they did raise the Iconics' hand, I remember thinking back to when I saw him on NXT. There was a point there where I watched NXT religiously, and watching the Iconics and that backstory of Peyton and Billy having grown up together, they trained together, they came into the business together, giving them the title, especially at Mania, I thought that was well-deserved, and they got an applause out of me for that one.
Yeah, it was a nice throwback to Edge and Christian winning the titles at WrestleMania 2000, and then you can show them as kids growing up and doing everything. And then there they were at the top of the ladder holding the titles at the biggest show of the year.
Trying their best not to fall off.
Right. No, that would kind of ruin the moment. Do you have any thoughts on Beth Phoenix returning? Anything on Nia Jax and Tamina, or even the Sasha Banks controversy from this week?
I did see that Sasha Banks controversy. But I did see a picture of her with Kalisto and all them down just taking a vacation. So maybe she just kind of got, I don't know. I think she gets moody,
Oh, boy.
She gets upset or whatever.
Easy there.
I don't know.
Yeah, Wendy Williams, that whole cancellation show
Yeah.
crap. She said it was a family thing, and if you know Sasha Banks' family, I think it is kind of just left to leave it at that, and they can kind of deal with it. I am going to, though, say I'm glad Beth Phoenix came back for this one match.
It was nice to see Beth Phoenix.
If
absolutely.
she wants to stick around, more power to her. She's obviously married to Edge and has connections with the company. They love her. She's in the Hall of Fame. She's done commentaries, so she's always
really
welcome.
didn't show any rust. I mean, she looked good in the ring. She looks to be in great shape. She was moving around very well. She wasn't kind of slow and lumbering. They didn't have to carry her. She actually had some really good spots.
Speaking of slow and lumbering, Nia Jackson, Tamina, I don't care for them. If they want to, the truth, if they want to get sent back down to NXT, I'm all for it. And actually, I almost don't say that as an insult because I'm all for some Raw and SmackDown guys going down to NXT, which Tyson Kidd did for a while.
Yeah.
And even
And
Zack
Cesaro.
Ryder and Cesaro. And I'm all for that for a lot. But more importantly, it'd be for them to kind of get out of the way for a while. I mean, even wasting, I think it was a match with Ronda Rousey back in December.
Yeah.
You know, just a waste of time. And a part of me wants Beth Phoenix to stick around, but another part of me does not want to see her turn into Mickie James, the respected veteran who came back and had some buzz and everything. And it's been, what now, like a year or two, and Mickie James is pretty much doing nothing.
Yeah, I barely recognized her in the Rumble.
No, and that's too bad. So
It is. It really is.
So my heart kind of says, Beth, you know, you came back for one match. You can, you know, obviously retire now or officially retire. But if she wants to stick around, I'm also all for that. So before we get to the WWE Championship match, which I'm sure we'll have a nice discussion about, I'm going to throw in a quick little plug again. This is the 411 Foresight Wrestling Podcast on the 411 Podcast Network, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, TuneIn, YouTube, and always rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. And 411mania.com is the website for my great articles and everything else you need in entertainment. Steve, anything you want a quick plug before getting to Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan?
Well, as I said in the beginning of the show, I do have a musical project called The Resonant Complex. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, all the places where music is sold. Also, we do have a YouTube channel. If you just type in The Resonant Complex, you should be able, we have a video for each one of the songs off of the debut record North Ave, which can be purchased anywhere.
Awesome. So Kofi Kingston, the 11-year journey over Daniel Bryan.
My boy. Do
Do you want to even talk about it, or do you just want to kind of get into it? What do you think?
Let's go. I mean, number one, the match was awesome.
It was awesome.
The build was great.
Probably best match of the night
Yep.
on a show that, honestly, not to jump ahead, but, you know, not a whole lot of, like, classic matches you're going to remember for years to come.
Right. The build was awesome. Very, very similar to the Daniel Bryan build, which I thought was then just fitting to have him in that position and be
B-plus player.
right, and then to be the antagonist in that whole thing. He pulled it off great. When they turned Daniel Bryan heel, I was very skeptical. I didn't know how he'd handle it because he had such a big crowd response. But
Right.
give it to Daniel Bryan. He knows how to work a crowd.
I like how we went from if Daniel Bryan loses, we riot, to if Daniel Bryan wins, we riot. But
Right?
that's how great of a character he's been since November. And turning.
Amazing.
It's been awesome. All right,
You
so
can tell he's been pondering stuff like this all his whole time off.
oh yeah, he's the guy who legit wants his dream match to be against a bear. Yes, a bear.
Yes.
So you're the big Kofi Kingston fan. I'm not going to say I
Absolutely.
ever was, and I'm not going to sit here and try to lie to all of you. So you're the Kofi guy, so go ahead. Talk
Dude,
about him.
He's earned it. Like I said, 2008, I first saw him, and I thought the Jamaican gimmick was hilarious, but I loved what I saw as far as his technique, his skills, what he was able to do in the ring. I was sold, and I was following him. I didn't necessarily like the gimmick, but I wanted to see more of Kofi. And then as he got in there, I kind of was like, hey, where'd your accent go? But I still followed him. And then the New Day thing was just killer, how they just took this idea and exploded with it. And now it's a brand on its own. They could, you know, he's basically made a name for himself where he could do anything for the rest of his life based on what he's done just this last couple of years.
I would say almost now on merch sales, they're probably set alone, which, by the way, they had the title shirt before he even won the title.
I heard about that.
Oh,
Funny.
So I'm going to give my little counter here. It is true, everything about it since Kofi, I've never really been sold on him. Mr. Steve here has, and kudos to him. He deserves all the props in the world. He was right, I was wrong. So I can admit that.
That's on tape.
That is on tape. You can write it down. My thing with Kofi is, I said it before, but I love the Kofi Kingston we saw at the Elimination Chamber. The serious, the scratching, clawing, fighting back underdog. That's who I wanted to see. That's what we got in this build. I thought the match, again, easily the best of the night. The problem is, I believe it was even 2 days after the Chamber, his great performance and everything, the first thing we see is Kofi hanging around with Big E and Xavier Woods throwing pancakes, and I think they were making some stupid booty joke or something. It's like, no, not right back down. I thought right away, like, oh, he's falling back to old habits again, and at some point somebody has to say something like, can we move on from this? But
why? It's entertaining. I love it. Dude, throw pancakes, man. Throw pancakes, throw waffles, whatever it is. It gets everybody interested.
And bootios.
And bootios, man.
That's your champ.
You know?
So
awesome.
I'm
Killer.
all for Kofi. I love it. I thought the story was great. I thought the comeback. I was of the 4 other people at the WrestleMania party Sunday, I was the one trying to actually stand up for Kofi because everyone else was saying, no, he's intercontinental level, and I don't think he's going to win. And I was the one saying, no, this is WrestleMania. This is an 11-year journey. Kofi's going to win.
We're telling stories here, folks.
We're telling stories. And the story was clearly Kofi doing it, and I thought it was a nice little touch that New Day had brought a gift out earlier. We didn't know what it was. And then it was the championship to show they were that confident in him that they were already getting them the title.
Yep, I did think it was fitting that when they pulled out the new title, it already had his plates on there. Like,
Yes.
where did kayfabe go?
Where did it go? Thrown out the window like the pancakes.
Like the pancakes. Just like pancakes, gone.
All right, before moving on to the U.S. title match, where do you think Kofi goes from here? Brian was not on SmackDown. So is Kofi long-term? Is this kind of a thank you 1 month run for your services? What do you think?
That's interesting. I'd like to think it'd be a little bit longer. I don't think he needs to have a massive record-breaking run. From the little bit that I read, I heard Daniel Bryan may potentially be injured.
Oh, boy.
Don't know for certain. But I'd like to see him at least maybe get at least through one pay-per-view and defend it, and then maybe, have a build-up or whatnot to where he can't.
I think it's a little scary that Kofi Kingston wins the title and his biggest fan is worried about 1 month retaining the title.
Well, because they have a tendency, I mean, what was it, just a couple of years ago, Zack Ryder won the Intercontinental title, loses it in 24 hours.
Right.
It's happened several times.
I thought he'd lose the tag titles the next night, too.
I thought that, too. I honestly thought that was happening, too.
Right.
So, and then, I got scared when they did that winner-take-all on Raw, and I'm like,
oh, yeah.
Oh, here we go. Somebody's going to lose it. And
One
then,
day.
And you and I were texting at the time. I was like, dude, this has
Scary.
to schmoz out. It has to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're not going to build up and build up just to tear it down. But they do that sometimes.
I'm going to show a little bit more confidence just because this was WrestleMania, WWE Championship. I don't know if you necessarily throw that away. If Kofi won it in October, November, December, yeah, he'd probably win it for a month and then get rid of it. But since this was put all this effort into the one thing, WrestleMania, I don't think you can immediately flush it. So I assume he'll have the title for a while and maybe some new challengers over on SmackDown Live soon.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's going to be pretty crazy.
It will be. The Superstar Shakeup is next week. Speaking of a guy I think will be moving, Samoa Joe, United States Championship match.
You think he's leaving SmackDown, huh?
Well, he holds a title, so think about who would be coming in return.
Right.
I think his match against Rey Mysterio was what it was. I mean, Mysterio was hurt, but also I think, Joe kind of needed this. He's been hurt the last 2 Manias, and actually this was, I believe, his debut at WrestleMania.
Yeah, if I recall, when I saw him walking down the aisle, I think that was the first time we've seen him at WrestleMania. Yeah, like you said, Rey was hurt. They were protecting him. He felt like he could go, but why risk it? And they can pay it off later.
I mean,
give him a good match
and no Mysterio on SmackDown Live either, for the record. I think 1 minute, I would have liked to see it better. My brother-in-law came over. He's a big Mysterio fan.
Oh, poor him.
I tried to tell him earlier. I tried to kind of lower
ease the pain.
ease the pain, and then it happened, and he literally just thought that and was just like, "What's going on?" And come on. And then, are you kidding me at the end? And then he literally left. Not even joking.
Oh, wow.
He came for that and sat through 4 hours at this point, whatever it was. And then he left. Again, I tried to tell him, but, Samoa Joe, I'm fine with it. He can hold the title for a while for all I care.
Absolutely. I like Samoa Joe. I'm a big Samoa Joe fan. I think he's got the tendency to just be a wrecking ball that every time he steps in the ring, you're going to get a good match, and he's a threat.
Right, and I'm a little torn, and we'll get to the Superstar Shakeup in a little bit, but I'm a little torn. I want to see the Braun Strowman showdown, but I also have them pretty much flip-flopping shows. But we will get to that. Roman Reigns over Drew McIntyre. I'm a big Reigns fan, but I was actually hoping McIntyre here, but I picked Reigns. It's the comeback story. He's obviously going to win his first match since leukemia, first singles match, and unfortunately, Drew just was kind of a default heel to beat.
Yeah, cancer has touched a lot of people's lives, and it's a big thing. So when they do a story where he's coming back from that, they're not going to have him, job out at the biggest show. I think McIntyre needs to be protected as far as his monster status because he's got a big, bright future as far as being a bad guy.
Yes.
So it was kind of sad to see him have to take the fall on that one. But, the storyline itself was good. It was good to see Roman Reigns back and healthy, and, it was awesome.
Yeah, I will say two quick little points. 10 minutes was, I was hoping for a little bit more, but I believe the show actually peaked with Kofi Kingston, Kofi Mania. So from here it was, I don't want to say downhill, but it was kind of like, all right, let's just get to the main event, with these next 4 matches. But I'll say two quick things. There's no shame in losing to Roman Reigns. There's no shame in losing to the top guy. You're not losing to Kurt Hawkins in a roll-up or whatever. You're losing to Roman Reigns. And also, let's not forget, Reigns was not really supposed to be back, so I could see some scrambling and going, oh, crap, now we have to find a heel, even if it was Baron Corbin or whoever. So, unfortunately, it just kind of seemed like, oh, boy. It kind of seemed like Drew was kind of in a tough spot here where they're like, well, we got to have him beat somebody. But so I'll defend it in that way. But, yeah, Reigns, Drew, again, 2 guys who may or may not be switching next week. I will say Triple H versus Batista was next, and I believe at one point we were trying to run through the matches of what was coming up left, and I want to say this one was my brother's most anticipated of the night.
Really?
It was, and I will quick say that was why this match took place. He is a casual fan. He knows 2005 WrestleMania 21 main events and Batista winning 3 straight pay-per-views over Triple H clean. So he knows that. He knows Drax. He knows, obviously, Triple H, and he knows the 2 names and the whole stipulation, no holds barred, career on the line. And that's why this match took place. For the fan just like him, not for us diehards who are 2 50-year-olds walking around in a brawl for 25 minutes. It's for, oh, wow, Batista's back after 5 years, and hey, here's Triple H with his career on the line. It could be his last match. So I didn't necessarily, it was fine for all the little tricks they did and stuff, but I get it.
I like that match. I'll be honest with you on that one. I was really happy to see Batista back in the way that he was back because I think he got kind of a raw deal on his last run with the whole Blue Tista thing.
Big time.
He was, and it was nothing against him. He was just wrong place, wrong time. The same thing of Mysterio getting booed as number 30 at the Rumble because everybody wanted Daniel Bryan.
And Batista lost at his 3, pay-per-views in a row to Daniel Bryan and then to the Shield twice. And it's and then people were hating on him. Like, for what? For what?
The dude still can work. And, so I was happy to see him brought back the way he was. He was definitely a credible threat. There was a point where it's like, maybe it's time Triple H should hang it up. And it was good to see Batista go out on his own terms. He wanted that match. Triple H gave it to him. And to me, I thought it was a decent match for what it was. I did have a little bit of comic when he tried to get in the ring and tripped up a little bit. But if that's the first time he was in the ring in how long, there's going to be a little bit of that there. So I thought the match overall was good as far as being 2 50-year-olds running around and brawling, and I really like the way they paid it off, too.
Yeah, I like it with Flair coming in at the end. I like a few things. One, I like that he did announce his retirement on Twitter right after the match at night, and I also like that he did take it seriously. He was down in Orlando actually setting up and doing the match and all that stuff. So he was there working with Triple H, who has, 2 super busy schedules. So I'm glad they put the thought and effort into making it what it was. And, if Batista retires, he's obviously a Hall of Famer. So he can go in next year in Tampa or the year after. I believe he lives in Tampa. But he can go in whatever year. And, that's how he wants to end his career. I'm happy for him.
Well, yeah, and he's got to go fight Thanos. So.
In theater soon. All right, up next, everybody's favorite son, Baron Corbin. Oh. He retired Kurt Angle.
Of course he did.
I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, I don't know Baron Corbin personally. I don't have any soft spots or whatever, but I really I don't like Baron Corbin. I haven't really been impressed with any of his work, but then again, maybe that's part of the whole job. Maybe that's what he's really good at, is making you hate him. Cena would have been so much better. So much better.
He would have, but see, I wrote this article a few weeks ago defending Corbin versus Angle, and really, I was all for Cena. The article was more of just to see their point of view of why they're doing it. It was just kind of a devil's advocate type thing. And, I had a few reasons. One is that the company does see something in Baron Corbin. So regardless of what it is, people forget he's a Money in the Bank winner, which in terms tells people he's a future world champion.
He's also a Money in the Bank loser.
He is also
just
a Money in the
throw
Bank
that
loser.
in.
So is Cena.
So is Damien Sandow.
Ooh. Oh, boy.
Oh.
Moment of silence for Damien.
You're welcome.
So, I can defend it by saying the company does see something in Baron, so he can now brag forever about retiring Angle. You can also say that a Final Faces match should be against the heel. The crowd should be booing their opponent. They shouldn't be cheering and dueling chants, Cena, Angle. Well, it's Angle's last match, so why would you want the crowd split? And you could also turn it around as the whole old school veteran thing. You do lose your last match and go out on your back, and that's what Kurt Angle did. You can name every legend in the world that you want, and, they pretty much lose their last match. So I would have liked Cena, but before moving on, we did see Cena earlier.
We did.
And that was pretty much their way of telling us, no, he's not coming out for Kurt Angle.
Right.
Pretty much to ease the crowd off and pull the Band-Aid off. He interrupted Elias as
Doctor of Thugonomics. Great segment. Great segment.
Okay.
Awesome. I was entertained. The whole point, why are we watching WrestleMania in the first place? To be entertained.
Right.
And this character was something we haven't seen for a long time. We got little glimpses of it when he was main eventing with The Rock. He brought out a little bit of it when he was trash talking and stuff, but we haven't seen full-blown word life in a long time. So it was refreshing, actually, and it was great.
It was cool to see, obviously, his theme music. I love it. And I'm going to quick say, did you enjoy the Cena Elias segment more or the Undertaker Elias segment more?
Oh.
I believe Saudi Arabia may be calling for one of those matchups.
I think so. That was apples and oranges. I don't think you can really compare Cena and Undertaker unless they're standing across the ring from each other.
Okay, I think a quick little thing also to add in is these three also interacted at last year's WrestleMania, if you remember.
I do remember.
So that was a cool little throwback. Up next in the marathon show, I believe it was almost midnight at this point, the IC title. Yes, we still had an IC title match. It only went 4 minutes, but of course they had to quick squeeze it in. Finn Balor turned into the Demon to beat Bobby Lashley for the IC title.
Now, was this the first time we saw the Demon at WrestleMania?
Yes, it is, because I thought last year he definitely should have done it for the IC title match with The Miz and Rollins, and it was his debut.
Right.
But he didn't do it.
He did not. So it was nice to see the Demon at WrestleMania finally, that giant crowd, the way they brought him in, Lev coming down from the top. I thought that was great. I love the Demon character. I think that's compelling in itself. That's one of the reasons why I was super into NXT and actually woke up real early that one morning when they did the Japan show.
Oh, that was awesome.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it was nice to see the Demon out there, and I'm still not high on Bobby Lashley. He doesn't impress me. He's just another big dude like Brock Lesnar. At least he doesn't have Brock's attitude. That's the only part that really sets him apart.
I was going to say, it has officially been a year since Lashley has been back with the company.
Oh, yeah. Wow. This year flew by.
It's been a weird year for him. Remember, he beat Roman Reigns clean on pay-per-view
Yep.
and seemed to be heading towards Brock at SummerSlam, and then him and Reigns had a rematch a week later on Raw for the title shot, and then Reigns won. So it seemed things were going well, but IC title, I think he's now, 2-time? He's won, I think, twice maybe, because he lost it quick and then won it back. So I think it's fine, and not to keep repeating this, but Balor now IC champ, and Lashley, Superstar Shakeup, maybe. Both could use a fresh start.
Absolutely. I could definitely see Balor going over to the other side.
For Joe, U.S. title for IC.
That would be pretty cool. And I love, I always love every year how they set up matches for that to happen. Like where they had Jeff Hardy win the title, and then he had a match over on SmackDown, and bam, he's there now. Or however they do that kind of stuff. I always think it's really creative how they keep the championships switching up without there being what's going on here,
keep you guessing.
Yeah.
And it's cool because I believe it's 6 weeks now till Money in the Bank. So they have time. There's not a pay-per-view in like 3 weeks or anything. So
Take a breath.
take a breath. Let everyone
Take
kind
a
of
nap, Vince.
He's like me. I don't think he likes naps.
I
So
love naps, but I'm old, so.
one last thing on Finn Balor. The night after Mania, he had the IC title match and defeated the returning Sami Zayn. People have kind of forgot about him already.
Yeah, I kind of
He is
did too.
back. What are your thoughts on his new toxic whatever fan Daniel Bryan type?
I think it's very akin to Daniel Bryan. There was actually a brief moment on Raw where I thought maybe Sami Zayn was going off script. I thought he was going to be like, you know what? I'm done. And then just disappears and quits wrestling altogether.
Right. I don't listen to other podcasts. The Jericho, Bischoff, you can name all the podcasts. I don't listen to any of them. Stone Cold, all those. But I will catch clips, and if something controversial is said or something, obviously I'll check it out to see what everyone's talking about. So I don't listen to any podcasts, but Zayn has now gone on a few, and his last 6 months away, 9 months away, it wouldn't surprise me if he is thinking retirement. I think he, during this time off, did kind of set his goals elsewhere outside of the ring. So this quote-unquote character maybe actually what's been built up for the past 9 months.
Yeah, I mean, and, I follow him on Twitter, Sami Zayn, and it seemed like he was having a blast with his off time. He was traveling.
We all would.
He was having a great time. I could definitely see this as kind of being like, the dude gets called up to the main roster and blows his shoulder out because he raised his arm too fast.
Against John Cena.
It was a great match still, but you got to know that your body is wearing out when you raise your arm and dislocate your shoulder.
Right, and then this injury, so that was another 9 months. And, I don't want to blame it on the independent scene, but a lot of these guys like Ciampa, they did kind of destroy their bodies before now getting paydays.
I mean, they got to make a name for themselves somehow, and unfortunately our blood culture is all about, what can you take to the face and how much blood can you spill before you pass out.
Yes.
I think that's a lot of Dean Ambrose's thing, too. I mean, he put himself through hell just to get to the WWE, and then once he did, he just was on the road nonstop. I mean, that's got to wear on you,
Yep. Do you want a quick talk about Dean Ambrose?
Sure. Yeah. Gonna miss him.
There's been back and forth updates for a while. All along, I was told he's gone, and it looks like he's gone. And, there's been a few quote-unquote final moments with him, but I'm glad he got another final moment after Raw went off the air this week. Reigns and Rollins pretty much took a backseat and said, Ambrose, say what you want to say, but, he's not a man of a lot of words, so he kind of just thanked everyone and left. I don't know. I don't think he's going to go to another company or anything.
Really?
I don't, but I could also see it happening.
I could see it happening. I know. From what I read, and, it could be lies or whatever, rumors or whatever, but from what I read, he was mainly just unhappy with the direction that they were taking him in. And I'm going to go out and say the big stigma. AEW has been, they've been saying for the longest time that they're going to give the wrestlers kind of a little more freedom and say in how their stories progress. They're not going to have writers and all that, is what they're saying. So I could see him being attracted that way for that kind of freedom. But I've also read that he doesn't need the money. He's done well for himself and he's saved.
He's CM Punk. He doesn't need the money.
Exactly. So I'm gonna miss him. I really liked him. I picked him to win the Rumble a couple of years ago, and it didn't pan out like that. I thought that each of the Shield was gonna have their own Rumble win and their own title win.
Okay.
And so, it's gonna be sad to see him go.
Yeah, the Shield actually all held the title in one night.
Yep.
That was a cool moment.
That was really cool.
I don't know. I don't think he'll go to another company. I guess I was never his biggest fan, but even I knew, him like facing Nia Jax or.
Yeah, that was rough. I'm personally not a fan of intergender wrestling. Call me old school and chivalrous. I was raised by women, whatever, but I don't think a man should attack a woman. And
no, I always say I'm surrounded by women, whether I'm at home or wherever.
Absolutely.
I always am, and not the biggest fan, and even Ambrose and Nia Jax. I mean, Nia Jax taking some RKO's in the Rumble was always fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, and she sold it well, and props
Yeah,
to her
yeah.
for getting in there and doing it, and props to the guys for doing it. I mean, obviously there was no actual violence going on, but I always kind of shy away from the man hitting a woman thing.
No, and that makes it even a better segue because the women didn't need to be facing men to main event WrestleMania.
How awesome. I just want to go right off and say it took them 35 years, but good way to go, ladies. They really stepped up, and it wasn't like it was just, okay, it's time to give it to the women now. No, they earned it. They really earned it.
No, I think it was Triple H who said something like they're not being put in the main event. They are the main event.
Absolutely.
And they have been forever. I mean, it started basically, I want to say, with NXT. But
Absolutely, yeah.
There's been a few, sporadic Raws here and there that have featured women, but this was the year. Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch got super hot late in the year. And I made the point a few times, but people say that Charlotte was shoehorned into this match.
No.
People forget Becky Lynch is the one shoehorned
Absolutely.
in because it was supposed to be Rousey versus Charlotte for the year build-up from last year because that's why Charlotte beat Asuka last year to build her up for the Rousey match. But honestly, it was a perfect storm. All three of them deserved it. I thought the entrances, Joan Jett, the helicopter, the man coming down it, and then obviously the match. I mean, it was all so perfect. I don't even know what part you want to touch on first or just
we
talk
can just
about
start
the whole...
on all of it. Well, yeah, we'll just talk about the whole thing. Now, I think, what was it? I think it was Bubba Ray Dudley went on record. He was defending, because Charlotte Flair was getting a lot of flack for being in the match. And he was defending her, saying that Ronda Rousey was brought in for that.
Yes.
Charlotte Flair was destined for that.
Right.
Becky Lynch fought and clawed her way into that. So each one of them had a reason to be there, a legit reason to be there, and each one of them should definitely take pride in the fact that it was all three of them that made that match what it was.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I get the arguments against Charlotte, and for the longest time I was also...
Oh, agreed,
but,
yeah.
but,
I mean, nobody likes the chosen one.
The chosen one. But I wrote a column, again, 411 Mania, but I wrote a column in, I want to say, the first week of January. It was the last week of December. Either way, I listed Charlotte as the unsung MVP of 2018. And my brother actually, he had his top 5 greatest title matches, and at his number 5 was Charlotte versus Asuka from last year's WrestleMania, because basically it was a precursor and kind of set up this women's revolution and now took them to the path of main eventing WrestleMania. It kind of proved once again, they've done it a few times, but it proved that they do belong and they can do it. And basically it set Charlotte in motion, and everyone talks about Becky getting hot late in the year in the fall, but for every hero you need the villain.
Absolutely.
And Charlotte was right there, neck and neck the whole way along with her. So as much as you can argue against it, I thought it was great all three of them were in there. I do think Rousey is either done or taking time off, but that has been the word for a while now, so I'm fine with it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was somewhat predictable that knowing that Ronda was not going to walk out with the title. It was just a matter of how.
Yeah, my bold prediction of 2019, my number one was Ronda Rousey will lose. Not necessarily too bold, but, she'd been undefeated forever. It was just, it was time for her to lose. She was going to, and a year after, obviously, she knows old school. When you're leaving the company, you go out on your back. So she knew, and everyone knew, it was Becky Lynch's time. Whether it's one title, 2 titles, what do you think? Will they merge them?
Part of me wants them to. Just
like the tag titles?
Yeah, just to kind of keep... one central. I kind of like the one central figurehead that floats between the shows.
Yeah.
Whenever I played the 2K wrestling games, I always made my guy win all the titles for all the shows, and he would just float back and forth.
I think I did that too.
It was just a blast.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that idea where you got these guys on 2 rosters and they're all struggling for position, but then you got that mountain of your title holder, doing this, and that each show should have its own singles title, like the U.S. and Intercontinental title, but then you got one champion.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of, because there's always talk of the 4 horsewomen and that whole thing. I like the idea of Bayley, Sasha, and Becky, being the traveling champions. Obviously, now with the Iconics, you can't really do that. But I'd be more than fine with Becky going to both shows. I think she was probably going to end up more so on Raw, in case anyone's noticed since the build. She's pretty much been on Raw.
Oh, yeah.
And technically she's SmackDown, so was Charlotte. But I think with the Superstar Shakeup, it probably really doesn't even matter at this point. If she's the champion of both, like she said, she's going to pull some double duty.
Right.
So any closing thoughts on the main event? The ending is talked about a lot. I think it was just kind of a mishap.
I think she got excited.
There's word the ref got fined for counting too
that.
fast, and if he would have waited half a second while Ronda was still putting her shoulders back, then it would have been fine. But
Right.
he immediately went to the pin and counted. I don't think it matters.
It doesn't.
The moment was Becky holding the titles. That's what we get. We can move on. We know she won clean. We know she won. We get it.
Right, exactly. I mean, this day and age, we all know that, wrestling is not fake, but it is scripted, predetermined.
Right.
So we knew what was going to happen, especially at that point. There was really no reason to fire off this controversy. Oh, she got her shoulder up or whatever. You could play it off as the ref didn't see it, or referee error like they do so many times. But the referee's decision stands. You don't need to play off, we find him and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like...
Yeah, it sucks that it happened, in the worst possible moment, the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone's going to be talking about. They're going to be talking about Rollins. They're going to be talking about Kofi Mania. They're going to talk about Cena. They're going to talk about Becky Lynch being the double champ in the main event.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I put on a little Twitter poll. I just said to rate WrestleMania 1 through 10. A 1 through 3 got 8%. I assume that's people messing around. 4 through 7 got 43%. And winning the poll, 49% gave it an 8 through 10.
Really?
So where would you rate it, 1 through 10?
Maybe taking into consideration the last few years and how I was kind of down hard on it, and this year I was really excited, I'm going to say at least somewhere between 8 and 9 out of 10. It was a fantastic show, incredibly long.
Oh boy.
But I was entertained all the way through it.
I believe it was my brother, again, super casual fan. I think he gave it an 8. He was entertained by most of it. He did go to bed early. He obviously couldn't stand it at that point. I think it was...
He tapped out, huh?
He tapped out.
New Moon tapped out.
New Moon tapped out. Clean.
We need to hashtag New Moon tapped out.
I think it was...
Love you, Noah.
Second or third last match, he left... I want to say it was before Balor, so maybe it was 2 matches left. He was disappointed he didn't see the women, but... he had enough at that day, kind of had a long night.
And that's what the network is for.
That's what it's there for.
I almost thought about pausing it a couple of times myself and just catching up with it the next day because I work real early in the morning, so that was a marathon for me. But I'm diehard, man. I stuck with it.
Yeah, it sucks. You always know if you work the next morning, it's like if I just can gut through this one day.
Just a little bit more.
A little bit more. And then
I'll go in at 5 instead of 4.
Right. I think in... my 411 Mania column said I gave it a 7.5, but I was actually misquoted. I gave
misquoted yourself?
Must have been the editor. I would go around an 8.5. So we're on the same boat.
Right on.
We're in the same area. I would say it's one of the better Manias, but still, if I'm rating 1 through 35, it'd probably be in the middle, but more towards the top, if that makes sense.
Okay, real quick then, what's your top?
Oh boy. Well, I've always liked WrestleMania 22. A lot of people don't. That's the one from Chicago. Cena, Triple H,
right, yep.
Vince, Shawn Michaels, Rey Mysterio winning the world title. Edge and Mick Foley had a great hardcore match. I always like WrestleMania 31. That's with the RKO to Seth Rollins in the air. And then obviously
and then
Brock
Rollins
Reigns.
cash-in,
And then the cash-in. So I always like that one.
I always throw back to WrestleMania 12, man. Boyhood dream.
Right. I always think WrestleMania 17, obviously in the Houston Astrodome. Rock. Yeah.
And I always throw it back to WrestleMania 7 because that was the first one that I ever saw. I remember going to the grocery store and they had a video rental section and I saw WrestleMania 7 and Mom was nice enough to rent it for me and I watched that thing probably 30 hours before we had to take it back over and over and over again.
We love you, Mom.
Love Mom.
Smart decision there. Okay, any closing thoughts on Mania before we talk about the Superstar Shakeup coming up?
No, I think we covered it, man. Mania was just a great show all the way around. It was fun to watch.
Next year, Tampa Bay.
Here we go. We're gonna be Pirates, huh?
I think I might want to go. But
I
went to Orlando. Might as well go back.
You go to Orlando, but you won't go to New York.
No, right. I won't. And it's funny, there's already a rumored location for the following year's WrestleMania, which is Los Angeles has a new stadium coming up.
Oh, my.
So maybe California. Maybe I'll go out to Cali. All right, so the Superstar Shakeup. Real quick, I have a comment on Twitter from Ashwin. What do you think of these? He says, AJ Styles to Raw.
I could see it. Like we talked about that a little bit earlier. He hasn't done much on Raw since he came in. He's been pretty much SmackDown But as we're saying that, and as we were talking about a little bit earlier, I start to think now they are doing this big AJ Styles house that AJ Styles built gimmick, so they might stick with that. I could see them sticking with that and him just being the SmackDown staple, kind of like the Undertaker was way back in the day.
Yeah, I mean Eddie, I mean Edge, Rey Mysterio, Undertaker. I mean a lot of top guys did stay on SmackDown for most of their career, and I would also add that AJ Styles may want to stay where he is due to the decreased schedule and his new contract, and maybe even people forget the Fox deal is coming up. So I would say almost SmackDown would be the place to be over Raw, even though everyone kind of thinks the opposite.
Well, that's because Raw has been, for years and years, has been known as the flagship show. But this
Right.
coming up, year with them starting up on Fox, there may be a change in the quote-unquote flagship show.
I think there will be for at least the first year. We'll obviously see how they do on Fox and the tie-ins with the NFL, and the World Series will be starting, and college football, and they're right in the middle of it because it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So they're definitely going to be promoted in it, and Triple H has even already hinted that they're not going to be promoted out of the kindness of Fox's heart. It's part of the contract is that they're going to be promoted and they're going to be front and center, so that's cool. The next one Ashwin says here is Strowman to SmackDown.
I could see it. It's a lot of the Superstar Shakeup is kind of like a breath of fresh air. Who haven't we seen on what show?
Yep.
So I think that all of these kind of random things, definitely, because they haven't done much on that other brand, and there's a whole list of characters on that other brand waiting to be, getting these hands.
Right. They didn't get his hands like Samoa Joe, perhaps. Full disclosure, last year I had Braun Strowman as my Superstar Shakeup move to SmackDown Live. It did not happen. I thought after the tagging with the kid, I thought for sure he had to get the heck away from Raw, get away from Brock, get away from Reigns. They'd kind of done that to death at that point. And I thought for sure he needed a fresh start. And as we saw probably through the last year, yeah, he probably did need to get away from Raw. So I'm kind of hoping this past Tuesday was almost like a tease, kind of to test the crowd reactions for him.
I'm thinking you're right. I mean, it almost kind of has to be at this point.
It was the same with Drew, but then a part of me thinks that the fact that they were on means that they won't be moved.
Maybe, like you said, crowd reactions. I don't think the crowd reaction for Drew McIntyre was as big as it was for Strowman, so I could see them maybe opting to keep McIntyre on Raw and letting him just run roughshod.
All right, he also adds one that I agree with, Usos to Raw.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, that would make sense of why they lost the titles.
It would make sense. Hardys, they could probably stay where they are. I don't think Hawkins and Ryder would go to SmackDown, so the Hardys then would not go to Raw.
Maybe Usos just run in there and take the titles from Hawkins and Ryder and be like, get back down there. Get back to catering.
New losing streak begins. Yeah.
Here we go.
Go get my food. But anyways, It makes sense. I could see Usos to Raw is one of my predictions I have written down. I think the very sudden kind of quick title loss may have kind of sealed it, and this fits with the next one, the Revival to SmackDown.
Sure.
That fits also the same kind of logic. Like if they're going to lose the titles, and then they lost the next night too.
Right.
So back to back, kind of the Bianca Belair thing. Like you could do a comeback story, but once you kind of do that, it's like, where do you go?
And poor Revival, they get brought in and there's all this buzz around them, and then they just get injury after injury after injury, and now they've just it's hard to get back behind them because a part of your brain is saying, well, when are they going to get injured? And we miss them for 6 months again,
Right, and I guess they are one of my NXT call-up disappointments. And, they apparently want out of the company, but their deals don't end for, I think it's another year. So I could see
really that long?
It's a while yet, but, they can always let them out early, but they don't really.
They don't do that.
They don't
unless
tend
they
to do
know that they're not going anywhere, like Hideo. Yeah.
Right, and I think Revival would immediately go elsewhere.
Oh, God, you know it. Because, and again, here we talk about the big bad AEW. They've been saying for months how they're going to put a big focus on tag team wrestling, giving the Young Bucks the control of the tag division. You're going to see a lot of great. I'm actually really excited for AEW. I think we're going to see a lot of really good matches come out of it. I also wouldn't doubt that there's going to be some big blunders coming out of it too, though.
That's okay. That's all part of the journey, and I think someone said it was today. Or AEW is a trial period right now. You know, there are going to be some growing pains. They're going to lose money right off the bat, so don't think anything.
Saying that.
Right. And I think it's the same with Vince. He's taking out like $300 million for XFL,
right?
I mean, I don't think that'll end well, but he's got $7 billion. So if he wants to take like 5% of that and blow it, he's still got the other 90%. So
if he wants to throw a couple of percentages my way,
hey, I'll take it.
I wouldn't be against it. I'll even say nice things about him. But I won't mention his name because apparently you get fired for that.
Do not mention his name. Do you have any Superstar Shakeup moves that maybe you want to see?
Want to see or possibly could see. I almost could see Roman Reigns going over to SmackDown because he hasn't been over there very much. He's always been associated with the red brand. Yeah,
a few months ago, I recorded a podcast and I said Reigns or Brock. I said regardless of how the story would go,
Brock won't go to SmackDown.
Well, hold on. Here's my logic. They're going to Fox. The obviously cross promotion with all the sports. So you're going to want sports people. That's why I think Braun would be almost the perfect guy to be, again, in the studio show and everything they're starting up. So I think Brock or Reigns, and again, Brock will only be there a few times. So if they ever need to pop a rating on Fox, just be like the return of Brock after 3 months, and then all the shows can talk about the NCAA and all of his UFC highlights. So again, I'm thinking sports. It's the same reason why Rousey, I think, could go to SmackDown. She won't be there every week. She could pop up every few months. But when she does, kind of like The Undertaker,
it's special.
It's SmackDown. It's special. It fits. And they're going to put a lot behind this Fox move. I think The Rock will be on the debut episode. I'm sure they'll do Edge, the Cutting Edge segment.
Oh, they're going to do tons of stuff. Just like they do when they switched over to Sinclair Network a bunch of years in like 2010 or whatever it was. Yeah, they're going to pull it all out.
I'm sure they'll, have The Undertaker come in and beat up someone. And the key to that, though, is there's always the following week. You can always do big things for the premiere, but it's like,
how do you follow up?
How do you leave the cliffhanger and get them to come back and then come back and come back and come back and keep it going? You can't just put all your eggs in one basket, so that's where you would need a big star and something to keep going. So I like the Reigns pick. I would say Reigns, Brock, or Rousey. I know that's kind of broad, but
Brock Lesnar's kind of like a stupid little moth, isn't he? He finds a bright light and flies towards it, ruins everything, and then takes his paycheck and goes away.
Hey, I'll take my paycheck and go away too. All right, were you thinking anything else that we haven't mentioned for Superstar Shakeup? I kind of have one, which has kind of already been teased.
Okay.
All right, besides the Orton one, just because he lost the battle of who runs SmackDown.
Right.
And he could be now kind of the veteran over on the Raw brand. Well, see, I don't like breaking news or anything, but I would just say watch out for Finn Balor coming up. And it's a little surprising he does still have the Intercontinental title. So if he went to SmackDown Live, almost by virtue of default, that would mean Joe goes over to Raw, but he went over last year, so do they really just flip-flop again? I don't know, but Finn for sure. And Joe, I guess, really doesn't have too much going on besides the Strowman tease, but right. I guess maybe that could have just been a tease if you remember when Nakamura and Miz had their tease, and then a few days later Miz went to Raw. So the tease was really nothing. So maybe these little Drew and Kofi, maybe that's the next feud, but also maybe it was just kind of a tease. So I don't really know. I think the Superstar Shakeup will be exciting, but I also keep mentioning the Fox debut in October, and it wouldn't surprise me if whatever moves happen now may not be the real moves. The real moves would be after SummerSlam if NXT call-up or Pete Dunne perhaps, or a Buddy Murphy.
I could see doing kind of padding the roster with a bunch of NXT guys, like the Raw roster with a bunch of NXT guys this coming Shakeup, and then putting a bunch of top guys on SmackDown. Excuse me. And then when they run SmackDown on Fox, then you got all these top guys that everybody knows, and you got this great wealth of talent on Raw that the diehards can still tune into and be impressed with.
Right, and that's where it's going to be a slippery slope because Fox paid $1 billion for SmackDown, and USA paid over $1 billion to keep Raw. And, I mean, I assume both networks will want Brock. I assume both networks will want Rousey. I assume both networks want Reigns. I assume both networks will pretty much want the best of the best. So how do you spread it out? I'm still not completely sold on NXT, perhaps not doing specials on FS1 or something every few months. So, how do you spread all that out and make everyone happy?
Right, and that's the thing is that you can't. Somebody is going to get shortchanged. Something is going to fall off at some point.
Right, they've they've had both shows on different companies or different TV stations before, so this isn't necessarily new ground, but in this day and age and money and the billions now, it could get a little hectic backstage.
Yeah, it's gonna, and then you got more TV eyes on you, so there's gonna be reporters. This backstage is gonna get super crowded. It's gonna be interesting to see how it all shakes up and how everybody handles it. Really,
that's why the keyword is shakeup.
Shakeup.
That is WrestleMania week. Do you have any closing thoughts on the entire week and even the week ahead?
It was exhausting.
I need a nap.
I need a nap, but I take one every day. But no, it was a blast. Though. I felt like a kid again. This whole week build up to WrestleMania, this final weekend, I was really kind of excited. So, going forward, I see a bright future. I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. I just hope that they can keep the momentum going. When does the Fox thing start?
That is first week of October.
Okay, so we
season.
they're gonna. It may fall flat somewhere in the middle of summer and then ramp back up for October as they gear up for that.
Right, and I always look at the years, kind of in like 3-month intervals. You do the Mania thing, and then you kind of do the shake-up stuff here where it's going to be exciting for a while. Then you do the fall kind of SummerSlam fun, and then you kind of start the year back up again and get it going again. So I'm going to real quick say that, I agree with the whole feeling like a kid again and all that, and I think I even apologized to my girlfriend at one point saying, just, let me have this weekend. Like, I'm sorry, there's going to be 40,000 hours this week.
Isn't it funny how we have to explain this to our significant others? My wife got it right away. She's like, you do you.
Yeah, that's kind of how it's been, and, she's a fan. Obviously, she'll watch with me. She knows all the stories. She knows probably about 95% of the guys and everything. So, but if I'm not there, she's probably not going to watch. But with me, she absolutely does watch. And this was her first Mania, so she was excited for it. And
Aww,
yeah,
her first Mania.
Her first Mania. How sweet.
That's wonderful.
All right. Any closing thoughts, plugs, anything to follow Mr. Steve Madsen?
Hey, let's check out the Resonant Complex debut album, North Avenue. Available everywhere music is sold. iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, TuneIn, whatever you want to find it, there it is. Check out the videos on the YouTube under theresonantcomplex.com. We also have theresonantcomplex.com. I forgot to mention that one. And then just a big shout out to my singer, J-Mick, and my wife, Shannon. Thanks for everything.
Awesome.
And thanks to you for having me on the show.
Oh,
it was
no,
awesome.
Man, you don't have to thank me. I'm thanking you. You know where to find me. At Justin Watry is the Twitter. 411mania.com is the website. You are listening to the 411 Foresight Wrestling Podcast on the 411 Podcast Network, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, TuneIn, YouTube. Always rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Give us those great reviews. We love it. Until next time, enjoy the show.